who's breaking down the marathon judgment of yesterday. I think Joaquin Dongo is still reading her judgment even now.
I can easily see.
Wherever Joaquin is still reading.
400 and something pages.
440 pages.
But you know what that makes me happy? Nilikuwa
alisoma na akaandika.
Akaandika. Unajua watu wengine wenye hawaelewi hata chochote.
Tuambie nani?
Sio hapa hizi tu hizi kelele za veve na kukaa kwa base na kujifanya lawyer na kuelewa law na hata hujawahi ingia kwa class yote. Joaquin Dongo anamuka tu anakata. No, she had 400 and something 40 pages of why. You see, Justice Ojwang on the other side had
was it 173 or something like that?
You understand?
Yes.
Smoking, Wanjala did not smoke.
No, he smoked out of it.
He
was smoking elsewhere.
You see? But then the majority,
yes,
which is the 4 lawyers out of the 2, of the justices out of the 2, carried the day. You understand?
Yeah.
But just like my learned friend says,
hey, your what?
Learned friend.
Hey, jealous.
It's my learned.
You're not allowed.
It's my friend.
Because you and I are not learned.
No. It's learned and it's my friend. So he has learned on my behalf. He has learned
on your behalf.
That you cannot dispute any of this. Or any of the justices, they had their reasons and everything, and all of them weighty reasons.
Yeah,
you understand?
Yeah, Steve. So we were talking about this 60-day, what is it? Window.
Yes,
which could expire, might expire.
Yes,
will expire on October the 31st.
Yes.
If we do not have an election by then, let's just look at this scenario.
Okay.
What happens? Do we have a constitutional crisis? Will President Kenyatta no longer be president? What happens?
The only constitutional crisis known in law that might happen if by 31st we don't have an election is if IBC refuses to conduct an election. You get? And that amounts to subversion of the constitution, like overthrowing the constitution. You know, and they'll be charged. You know,
that's a criminal.
It's a criminal offense. Yeah, to refuse to do that which the law has ordained and mandated you to do. In terms of power vacuum, no, the Constitution has not envisioned a scenario where there may be power vacuum. If for one reason or another, let's say there's a state of emergency and it's no longer possible to conduct an election, the president in power, Uhuru Kenyatta, succeeds himself in office until such a time that the emergency is over. Of course, Parliament is sitting. Parliament will have to approve that. So there has to be a significant issue emerging that then may necessitate that emergency, and then Uhuru will continue sitting. In the absence of emergency, elections must be held unless IBC wants to subvert the constitution. Now, will there be a crisis if Jubilee, Uhuru Kenyatta, or NASA, Raila Odinga pulls out of the electoral process? No. There will be no crisis. And I think I just want to state what I was saying off air for the public, for their benefit. Let us disabuse this narrative, you know, that the constitution does not, that there is no avenue where someone does not participate in election. Remember, the procedure for election is outlined in Article 138. And you know what, Jeff? The first statement that finds the pride of place in that article says that if only one candidate is nominated, he shall be declared president. Why are Kenyans neglecting that provision? You know, it sits pretty on top of every other provision. Article 138 has so many provisions. I think there are sub-provisions, sub-articles, there are 8 or 9. The first one, and you know, in terms of drafting the constitution, the one that appears top is the one that has more value. So it starts by saying if there's only one candidate, for whatever reason, it could be that others are not, maybe they're not interested in participating in election. You are happy with the performance of the president. I don't think you should waste public resources challenging him. Kenyans should be able to reach that level, I hope, one day in the future, where you say, maybe the president has done really well. He's allowed 2 terms. Let him do the 2 terms. Let us save the money, the 8 billion for managing an election. Let's channel it somewhere. If there is only one candidate, because the others have not refused to participate, Uhuru will be declared elected. he will be declared elected on the day the date of election arrives, on 17th or on 24th. At 5 p.m., he will be declared elected. Now, that requires that Raila must withdraw formally in writing.
Formally.
Yeah.
Not just in rallies or...
rally. That won't count. He must withdraw formally, and then IBC will then be able to pursuant to that letter of withdrawing. In fact, the letter must be done by the party, the ODM party, because it's a party candidate. The party withdraws their candidate from that process. You know, they need not to give explanations, or even if they give explanation, what is important is that now they've withdrawn the candidate. The only legal consequence is that the next thing is that will be sworn in. Let us not build anxieties. Oh, there'll be chaos. You know what, Jeff? If the people of Kenya don't want to preserve peace, you don't need an election to create chaos in the country.
Right.
You don't need an election. Anything, if you are an irritable nation and you are excessively ethnic, you don't need a trigger like an election. All you need is even a fire in River Road.
Yeah.
To trigger some unrest.
Or some bees at the Supreme Court.
So let us be calm. There's never going to be a legal crisis. But Jeff, and I make a plea to the political class. I hope you have the interest of the country in your heart, at heart. The things you care for, and I support NAS on those, must be conclusively addressed by IBC. Addressing means where it depends on you to make adjustments, make those adjustments. You get? Where you're not able to make adjustments, communicate with clarity to the political actors, to the country. This country is full of people with common sense. We will understand. You get?
Yeah.
And then we will move the election. If somebody refuses to go to an election after you've made your explanations, such people will lose political legitimacy to organize a certain constituency to disrupt the order of government, whether it's Uhuru, whether it's Raila. I think that settles it. So there's no crisis.
No crisis.
At all.
What is this other talk about Nusu Mkate, Steve?
Well, people are building theories around, people are pontificating around so many scenarios. But if you have a scenario, the thing is, where is it founded? It must sprout from somewhere.
Yes. So Nusu Mkate is
germinate.
nowhere.
So in our order of governance, I don't see a caretaker government and Nusu Mkate government emerging in law. You get?
Yeah.
We can never reach that level. Unless IBC subverts the constitution and refuses to conduct election, then now there might be a political crisis because the commission has refused to conduct election for whatever reason. Then now people may begin to negotiate that Uhuru Kenyatta, no, the law does not anticipate that you should succeed yourself in office where IBC has refused to conduct election. Now that one, now there'll be a real crisis. Then now you can talk about a caretaker government. You can talk about a government of national unity. You can talk about, but IBC has not indicated that it's unwilling to conduct election. So the issue about Sumkwate, the issue about caretaker government doesn't arise. And it will not arise.
And if you have friends at the IEBC right now, Steve, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them that they need to do a lot of confidence building. Let them not ignore or neglect the concerns raised by a certain political formation, be they Jubilee, be they NASA. And I've said before, Jubilee also should not behave as if they have no concerns. How can it be that that only NASA promotes the image that it cares for a transparent election? Jubilee must also equally come up and say, we also care for a transparent election and these are our demands. Can you also meet them to the extent that is possible? IBC will then respond to all of them, assure the public. Remember, communication is key. If you are doing the right thing and you're not communicating, how will people know? If you are making an honest mistake, you're not apologizing, you're not communicating, how will people know? That communication is the investment for post-election mechanism, should there be any. Because if IBC communicates with clarity, all of us live in this country, we are listening to IBC, we are watching IBC, we are watching the political space, we will know that there was no legitimate claim for not going to the election. And we will know that there is no legitimate claim for disrupting the order of government. Because we were there. All this depends on IBC. Also, political actors, Jubilee and NAS, and all Kenyans, we must move the level where we begin to innovate within the challenges. And the prime challenge, Jeff and Jalas, we can't lie to ourselves that IBC is blame-free. Election has been cancelled not because of Uhuru Kenyatta, not because of Raila Odinga, but because of IBC. Although the court was unable to point fingers at particular individual, but the staff there, from the clerks, the presiding officers, the returning officers, the constituency returning officers, county returning officers at that time, and even now the IBC, the secretariat, they are responsible for the mess that now the country is experiencing. What they must do, since all of them can't resign, you get, they must innovate within the challenges. One way of innovating is that issuing a public apology. I would have been very happy, Jeff, if I saw the commission emerging today after they have analyzed and digested the ruling at the full judgment and say, listen, Kenyans, we are going to an election because of mistakes committed by some people who are negligent from this commission, and we want to assure, first of all, we are really sorry that you have to spend a lot of money to go back to election. And elections in Kenya are highly emotive.
Correct.
Life can't move on until the election is over. So IBC owes us an apology, number one. Number two, they must then now communicate with clarity the things that they are going to do differently to improve the perception that election is going to be well managed. Because there's a question of perception. If you do election management very well and the people don't perceive it to be well managed, you are on your own.
Yeah.
If you mismanage it, the people perceive it as well managed, you're just okay. You know what? If Raila had not gone to court, if Raila had conceded, there would have been no opportunity to cancel the election. The perception that election was well managed would have been sustained. So election is about perception. IBC must build the perception that they are interested in delivering a free, fair, credible election.
Election is about
perceptions.
Steve Ogola, we'll have to leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. Brilliant stuff, my learned friend.
Yes, he went to school on our behalf. On our behalf.
For all of us.
That was precise.
Yes.
That was articulate.
And concise.
That was concise.
Elections are
perceptions.
Hey. Steve Ogola, advocate, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Top of the hour coming up. And then after that, a story
a day.
It's the Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jelano.